Hello all, and welcome back to another episode of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, we are reviewing The Last of Us Season 1, and today we are on Episode 7, titled Left Behind. If you haven't watched it yet, this is your spoiler. Please check it out before continuing to listen to the rest of our conversation today. Okay, Sarah, start us off with a summary for Episode 7.
As Joel fights to survive, Ellie looks back on the night that changed everything.
Okay, well, what is your episode title for Episode 7?
Mine is Stitches.
Oh, yeah. There's some close-up shots of needle and thread in this episode.
Well, and even before that, like when Ellie beats that girl up,
right.
They say it over and over and over again. 15 stitches, 15 stitches. And so the whole time I was like, oh, Ellie's going to stitch him up because we've said stitches 100 times now.
And they're in a home and yep.
Yeah. Needle and thread, baby.
Okay, my episode title is Propaganda Bullshit.
Yes, we get quite a bit of that in this episode too.
Oh, that's good. Okay, let's dive right in and share some of our thoughts about Episode 7. We're marching along. What did you think about this episode?
Okay, before I need to ask you a question, and that is, Jen, have you learned the lesson of The Last of Us? Or did this episode get you?
No, I was like, there's no way. Honestly, too, because she is so admirable and charismatic and all this stuff that, and there's such like warm fuzzies at the beginning between the two of them. I was like, no. If you're fighting, maybe she has a chance for survival, our girl Riley, but there's so much warm fuzzies there that we know what The Last of Us does. The show is very mean, as you've said.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure because we had in our Henry and Sam episode just a whole thing about the lessons that we've learned. So I'm glad we've learned some lessons and we've learned not to trust The Last of Us, and that served us well in this episode.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect that probably helped this too is that we know it's a flashback for Ellie, and she's in the present in a state of like panic and like the person that she cares deeply about is on the edge of death. And so it makes sense that she's thinking back to perhaps her past losses. So I'm like, oh no, this is all primed for Riley to not make it at all. And yeah, the show delivers. I think how it all plays out is probably the more interesting part for us to chat about.
Yeah. And I mean, just shout out to Storm Reed, who does a fantastic job as Riley. Like, she's so cool. I just wanted to keep hanging out with her. And it was just this episode, I feel like, does a great job of reminding us more about Ellie and the fact that she has grown up in this world that only the fungal outbreak world, she doesn't know the before times. And so going to a mall, like, she hasn't done that before. She hasn't experienced an escalator before. So there's all these really fun moments where we get to see that childlike wonder of Ellie. And then all throughout, there's, emotional highs and lows that both of these actresses handle just phenomenally. So I think, this is just like an acting showcase from two really, really young actors who are absolutely killing it. So I think that makes it fun and entertaining to watch. And especially because, like, we've all gone to the mall. Like, it was super cool in high school or middle school or whatever. And now it's like this dreaded place that if you have to go to a mall, that sucks. So it's just also fun to see the ways that the mall has changed as a cultural experience within our own world. And then in this dystopian universe, a mall means something incredibly different to these characters as well.
Hmm. I read somewhere and I really loved this framing about the mall being such a fitting setting for this coming of age moment for both of these two young humans that are figuring out and navigating, learning about themselves and each other and discovering their feelings. I just thought that that was such a fascinating backdrop and choice. Obviously, it makes for some really great set pieces, but it also is the place for a lot of like suburban kids growing up in America in that era where you just go to the mall to hang out. Like there's no objective. We're not going to see a movie. We literally just wander and get into some shenanigans and just like literally go to spend time and hang out. And so many like formative moments and friendship moments and whatnot are all so much formed in that as the setting and the environment. And so I thought that was such a smart choice from the show to have this be a way to showcase the passage of time in the world of this apocalyptic world, but also it's the perfect fitting for the moments that these characters share while they're at this mall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the mall was the happening place to be. It's
Mm-hmm.
wild.
Yeah.
And they live up this experience. They like Riley really curated a really cool experience for these two to have, and she did some magic with what she had available to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty neat to see the dynamic between these two. And I think it's also fascinating that her character's written to be like 3 years older than Ellie. And there's clearly that dynamic that's part of their friendship as well. Like Riley is fearless and strong and unafraid of the world and she's got this boldness about her, but she's also just like older in general, and her thoughts and her desires might be a little bit more developed than where Ellie is at the age of 13 or 14. And so you kind of see this awe and wonder that Ellie has for Riley, and that makes a lot of sense because Riley is that like cooler, older kid that you kind of look up to and you wish you could be like, but you're also just so like grateful for that you just get to be in their presence, you know? And I feel like seeing that aspect of their friendship, I think, was played out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, we also just want to hang out with her too, because Riley is so cool. And they have such different personalities, and yet they have such good chemistry together, and the way that they can banter back and forth and give each other a hard time. And it's just a really endearing relationship. And it's also fun to see Ellie in a moment when she is accepted and when she has that close camaraderie with somebody, because we haven't seen that in this show really. Like she has moments with Joel when they, are able to banter back and forth, or you can see this warmth that is developed between over the course of these episodes, but it's a whole different experience with Riley because these two genuinely care about each other and are really, really good friends. And it's so nice to see that for this character who has been so alone. And then obviously that just makes it all the more heartbreaking to see her having that close bond with somebody and feeling like she belongs. And then we know what happens and that she ends up alone again. So it makes that tragedy feel all the more brutal because we saw the warmth and the fun that she had with this friendship.
Yeah, honestly, Ellie is a new character that we are getting to know in this flashback, like she, in the same way that we are learning who Riley is, we're also learning this older version of Ellie from the past and her personality and her attitude and how it manifests, but also her like ideas and thoughts about the world have changed so much in the present versus in the past that I think Ellie feels like almost this like different version of her that like I felt like throughout the episode I was getting to know this new character that is past Ellie, pre meeting Joel, pre getting bit. All of that is just kind of a different person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which makes sense. After going through such traumatic experiences, and now she's been I don't know, taken by this group. And I think that was the thing that was maybe so surprising to me, is how she was more closely aligned with the QZ than the Fireflies. Like, obviously we see her in that first episode and she's very antagonistic toward the Fireflies because they've kidnapped her essentially and are holding her hostage. So that makes sense. But this episode reveals that antagonism toward the Fireflies goes much deeper. And so it's not just, you know, Riley dying. It's not just her being kidnapped, but there's something deeper here. And she is very against them. So I think that makes this whole journey that her and Joel are on to get her to the Fireflies to create a cure. I think that complicates all of that and almost calls into question that goal, because clearly Ellie wants to save people. She has that protector instinct, but I wonder if there's going to come a point where she doesn't trust the Fireflies to create that cure, and if that will be a source of tension, because both her and Joel really mistrust this organization, and for good reason, probably.
That's a really great point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about those maybe ripple effect implications for, like, how does Ellie feel about the Fireflies in the present? We kind of don't know. And what has caused those ideas to maybe evolve? Because what I really appreciate is that the show stops the story in the flashback at the moment where, like, essentially they've discovered that they're bitten. You know, we don't get to see Riley turn, Marlene show up. We don't get to see like Marlene discovering Ellie's immune. Like, it just cuts right there. And I think that's really smart, because there's still kind of gaps in the backstory that we as the viewer still don't have about, like, what transpired between Ellie and Marlene. What conversations have they had? What new context has Ellie discovered that maybe have warmed her to the Fireflies or not? I mean, they did like chain her and lock her up, so I'm sure she's not feeling like real warm and fuzzy, but she definitely seems a lot less combative about the Fireflies than she did in, you know, this flashback sequence. But there's missing puzzle pieces that we don't have as viewers with the context. And I really appreciate that the show doesn't bring us all the way up to the point to the last piece of knowledge that we have around the relationship between Ellie and Marlene. We just don't know, and that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. The not knowing is good. You know, we need to know certain things, but we don't need to know everything. And I feel like this show is doing a good job of creating those pockets of mystery and intrigue, because I don't know, that's just how life goes. We don't know all the information all the time, and that's okay. So we don't need to know all the information about the show. And I feel like those gaps can help set up future character moments, which might be interesting to play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the one that it kind of highlights, one of the things that I thought was really great about this episode is some of the back and forth conversations that Ellie and Riley have around ideologies. And they are unafraid to call each other out on maybe some blind spots or some areas that each other hasn't really considered about the ideas that they are believing in and supporting. And so that healthy questioning of each other and poking and prodding at our beliefs in order for them to be re-examined, reconsidered, or strengthened, I thought was like really great. I think sometimes, especially today, ideologies are so powerful and so intoxicating, and we see that there's strong, passionate opinions on every angle of how society should be run, and there's not a lot of room for healthy questioning and poking and prodding and debate. And I loved seeing these two young girls like really challenge each other and be willing to spar a little bit, and they both have enough trust and care there that they're not going to react in an incredibly negative way. They're not perfect at it. They get a little sensitive and whatnot when they're in those conversations, as you would as a human being. But they also are able to communicate clearly about like perhaps why they've chosen to believe in this specific ideology or to articulate their thoughts about it. And I thought that was really healthy to see. It's not perfect, and I think that's actually even healthier, that it's not this like beautiful sparring between these two minds, but emotions get in the way, but then they quickly come back to say like, okay, well, then they move on to the next topic. And I thought that was really neat to see.
And I appreciate the agree to disagree thing. And they never say it, but it is this like, I have this position, you have this position, we're not going to agree. and both are flawed and both have drawbacks, and we're making the best decision that we can with the limited information that we have. And we just have to accept that we're not going to agree, and we can still be friends. We can still have a good time together. I think that was really, really fun to see and see that modeled in such an organic way.
Mm-hmm. And it was really impressive to me that Riley is able to articulate that maybe she doesn't believe fully in all of the ideas that the Fireflies have. And maybe some parts of it are a little bit extreme or whatnot. But what she's able to like pinpoint, like she is looking for belonging. She had a family once and she wants that again. And the Fireflies have been able to provide that for her. And that just level of self-awareness to say, yeah, it's probably not perfect and they might have some extreme ideas, but this is what I desire and this is how it's being fulfilled. And being able to like admit that and articulate that with such clarity is like really quite impressive for a 17-year-old.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for anybody, but yeah, especially when you're 17. And I think just that revealing of priorities too. We saw in the Henry and Sam episode where Ellie reveals that desire to belong, and her greatest fear is not wanting to end up alone. And we see that Riley has a similar core motivator that is pushing her to the Fireflies. And it's interesting that they share similar core motivations, but it's leading them down different paths. And I just thought that was an interesting choice. They can bond over this desire to belong and all of that. And yet that same desire might lead them down divergent paths. And that's just something that happens sometime in life too. And you're usually figuring that out, in your late teens and early 20s as you're just working things out. But these girls are just figuring that out maybe a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing the clarity with which they're able to communicate. It's quite impressive. My one qualm about that whole conversation that they have is when Riley says something along the lines of like, you don't know everything and you don't know what you've never had a family, so you wouldn't understand. And I'm like, okay, girl, calm down a little bit. Like, I understand this is like very meaningful for you, but there's a little bit of like discounting of Ellie's experiences, perhaps because of that, again, age gap dynamic that I was like, this is not a perfect little sweet friendship here. There's a little bit of maybe Riley like wanting to be the leader and believing that her ideas are better and that Ellie doesn't understand because maybe she is younger. And I thought that detail was a little interesting. Rubbed me a little wrong way, but that's fine. They're kids. I get
it. Yeah. I feel like everybody who's been a kid has done that before. Where it's like,
you relish in being older.
Yes. Yep, exactly.
Older,
so
wiser.
Yeah. The wise old age of 17.
Yep. Which, like, there's a lot of complexity and nuance and ideas at that age, honestly. Like, you really start to think about like who you are, and so much happens between the age of 14 and 17 that it was one of those moments where I really felt the delta in their age, in their dynamic.
Yeah, that is interesting because they're just a few years apart, but those are some important years.
Yep.
Well, and we've also seen Ellie throughout this show having to be so adult and taking care of herself and taking charge and, you know, being the straight shooter and all of these kind of adultish behaviors. But I appreciate that in some of those conversations, you're still seeing that kid aspect to her. And it is one thing that I've talked about a lot in our episodes, but I just appreciate that this show is intentional to remind us that she is still a kid, even though she's dealing with really, really adult things and is having to make adult decisions and all of this, but she is still a kid. And so I love that reminder, because I feel like we need that, because she acts so much older than she is for a lot of the show.
Yes, yes. And I feel like, and maybe this was going back to my earlier comment around feeling like I'm getting to know this Ellie, is that she feels younger in this episode as well. You know, like I think the perhaps like events of the last couple of months, I'm assuming it's been a couple of months, at least 3 months for sure, since the events that transpired. I don't know how long she was in Marlene's captivity, but she feels so much more youthful, and maybe it's just the ease with which she can laugh and be silly and giggle with Riley that just it's a totally different demeanor of Ellie that we know, which I thought was really, really interesting, just how much she's experienced so much and had to grow up so much in the past couple of months, really.
Yeah, and how, like, if you already have those feelings of abandonment and, you know, your whatever trauma she has from her childhood, and then, you know, you have this really great friendship that is potentially becoming something more, and then you're both bitten and she dies and you don't. And so there's the trauma of losing your best friend, there's the trauma of you surviving, and then you're dumped into this whole other thing too. Like, man, it's just a lot for this kid to process through.
Yeah. And also, she's seen so much more after being in the open city now, you know, like just she's seen the infected beings, she's seen death, like that changes you. She's lost arguably one of the most important people she's ever cared about in her life at the most formative time in her life. Like that changes you, you know, and I feel like it's a testament to Bella Ramsey's acting that we can feel palpably the difference between this almost like lighter on her feet, more youthful, more giggly version of Ellie that we see in this flashback.
Yep. Yeah. And then we're cut back into the present where she has to find needle and thread to sew up a grown man's stabbing wound.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This poor girl.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we're moving along on that plot line, you know? Like I'm like this is better, but also there's probably so much infection in there, and that wound has not been cleaned out. Like there's probably shards of wood in there from the stab device. Like there's just, I'm like, this is not still not gonna go well.
Oh yeah, no, this is rough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like Joel has mentioned, I think he says he's 56. We've seen he has potentially like a heart something going on, or there's a medical something that is underlying that he's been ignoring going on. And now we're having this stabbed business and sewn together with not sterilized needle and thread by the hands of a teenager who is probably shaking and just, oh gosh, it's bad. But, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yep.
So at least I am just happy that Tommy did not show up on a horse to save the day.
There was not a horse in sight. Yes, indeed.
Great. It was just the horse that these two rode in on. That is the only horse that exists. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's very true. They didn't do the dreaded thing that you were afraid of, so that's very good.
I'm pleased.
That's a win, you know?
Yep. We will take the wins where we can get them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Shall we give out some TVNS awards?
Can I say a very silly thing? Well, I don't know. I don't know that this reference is going to work well on you, but did you ever watch the show How I Met Your Mother?
I watched a couple of episodes, yeah.
Okay, so...
But I don't remember a lot of it, so...
That's totally fine. There is a whole plot line where Robin was a teenage pop star in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And Barney finds the music video of her big single, which is Let's Go to the Mall. And so the whole time during this episode, I just kept thinking about Let's Go to the Mall. And that song was playing in my head while I was watching these two navigate the abandoned mall, which is probably not what the show is going for. But that is my How I Met Your Mother, The Last of Us crossover.
This is how you went through this episode. I love that. A little soundtrack in the background.
Yes, it is. It is not the vibe, but I had a lot of fun with it.
And that's all that matters, you know?
Yep.
That's all that matters. Yes. All right. Well, let's give out some TVNS awards. The first category is for Scrappiest Survivor. What is your choice for this one?
I would like to give it to Mortal Kombat 2 for still being awesome.
Nice. Yes. Well done. Yeah, they spend the whole bucket of coins.
Honestly, though, I mean, it's not a bad choice. Mortal Kombat is awesome. So I'm glad to see that even in this dystopian world, Mortal Kombat still rocks. And that's nice.
Yep. I'm giving this award to that carousel for somehow still working after 20 years. Carousels today already are barely working. Like, you ride those and I'm like, it's creaking. It sounds like there's a monster in there. You're like, this thing's about to give out in any moment. And that one survived a whole apocalypse and 2 decades.
Jen, can I tell you my weird carousel thing from when I was a child?
Oh my gosh. Was it a traumatic experience? Was it a joyous?
No, it's a weird thing about me that I have no answers for why this was my choice.
Do you pick the little like seat and not a horse?
No, well, I didn't pick a horse, but I didn't pick the little seat. So, and at the one in the Tucson Mall, there was a chicken. And for some reason, I always had to ride the chicken. And if the chicken was not available, I was not going to go on the merry-go-round. It was the chicken or bust, and I don't know why, but that was my choice as a child.
You know, talking about like propaganda bullshit, you had a whole ideology for your carousel riding experiences. It was that or nothing. Talk about some of your extremist tendencies from you.
Yeah. So, but I can't tell you why I wanted to ride the chicken, but that was the only one that I wanted.
I can tell it's the same spirit in you that is like, oh, people love Star Wars. I don't know if
it's true.
Like it.
It's true. I have to be a contrarian, even as a small child.
It was alive and well back as a youth.
Yes. Yep.
But I love, honestly, that the Tucson Mall had a chicken on their carousel.
Had a chicken.
Someone had a great time designing that one.
Right? Why? Why would you do that?
And you appreciated their handiwork, their creativity.
I did. It was the best.
Wow. I love this little detail about you. That and the furry pigs are really some of my favorite Sarah quirks.
I love pigs. They're so cute. I don't want the little cute ones, though. I want the big fat ones. Those are the best.
That and the chicken carousel. Good stuff. Okay. The next category is for grittiest moment. What is your choice?
I got to give it to Ellie sewing Joel back together with a needle and thread and no anything else.
Yeah. Oh, no. She is, you can see the like focus in her eyes too. I love that close-up shot. I'm like, oh man, this girl, she can do anything, honestly.
Honestly, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Also really painful for Joel. My gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so
like,
sorry.
how is he gonna stay still enough so that she's able to do that? You know what I mean?
He endures that very well. I'm proud of him. I would have flung myself off that little cot, this little cushion with every last ounce of strength that I have. Yeah. No, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, take me now, Lord.
Exactly. Like, I'm done. It's not worth it. Like,
yeah. My choice for Grittiest Moment Award is the photo booth panic moment.
Yes.
I captured that perfectly. Why does that thing, we need like a 10-second countdown. 5 is not enough. And no one is ever ready.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knows what they're doing in each thing. So I thought they nailed that. That was really funny.
Oh, it's so good. It's so relatable. Because if you have ever done a photo booth, you know exactly what that feels like.
Yep. Okay, the next category is Straight Shooter Award. What's your choice?
I'm going to give it to Riley for when she says to Ellie, you can't fight everything and everyone. You have to pick and choose what's important.
That's good. That's good life advice, man.
Right? Yeah. Like, that's real, straight to the point. It's succinct and it's accurate.
Yes.
Like, way to go, Riley. Killed it.
Yep. My choice for this award is when Ellie says to Riley, after she finds out that Riley's about to move, she says, God damn, I want to punch you so bad.
I love that.
Oh, it's great. I love it. All right, looking ahead, what are you excited to see next?
Yeah. How does Joel recover from being sewn up? And then, like, what is their encounter with the Fireflies going to look like when they finally encounter the Fireflies? You know?
Yep.
Because we touched on it earlier, but both of these characters don't trust them. And it's clear, because initially I was kind of thinking of like the Fedra as the Empire, and then the Fireflies as the Rebel Alliance, and we got our good guys and our bad guys. And then everything in this show has made it clear that that's not quite the case. Mm-hmm. And there are good things with Fedra and there are bad things. And there are good things with the Fireflies and there are bad things. And so I'm curious how that is all going to come together. I don't imagine that it's going to be like this nice, warm and fuzzy like reunion and like, oh yay, Ellie's here now, so we're gonna create a medicine and everything's going to be fine. Like, that's not what's going to happen. So I'm curious what that tension will look like and then how that's going to press our characters and potentially derail them away from their goals, you know? I'm intrigued how that's going to go down over the next episode or two.
Yeah. And if we will eventually meet the Fireflies, because one of my question is like, Joel's real hurt right now. And unless they do another time jump situation, like we've got 2 episodes left in this season, and that's not enough time for him to recover. So unless they speed through of like a few weeks have passed and Joel's better now and they're on their merry way, like they're kind of stuck here for a while, you know? And like, who else is around? What is Ellie going to do with this time now? Like, I'm curious where the story is going, because for most of the season, we're making progress because Joel is capable and they are going on their merry way. They're going from city to city, encountering new people. And now that he's out for a bit, what will transpire now? And because we have a runway of 2 episodes left in the season, I love this time in a season because I'm always just like, there's enough time for us to do something like big to set up the ending. And I don't know what it is yet, but there's still plenty of runway. And so I'm just intrigued to see where they will take this and at what point they choose to end the season before we head into the next one. So I'm just curious how they're going to use the time of 2 episodes left in a season to tell us a story, get us to a big climactic moment, leave us probably on a cliffhanger, and we head into the next season.
Yeah. Yeah. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go?
Yeah.
Joel
There's a lot of constraints now. Yeah.
Yeah. Joel can hobble to the bathroom and then back to bed. And that is his radius of movement right now.
And that's the type of like wound that just takes time too. You know, you can't even just like, all right, let's prop him up and like put him in the wagon and drag him along. No, like you got to sit upright on a horse, which is not great for that one. So there's just, he's going to need to be horizontal for a very long time. And in the meantime, what are we getting up to?
Yeah, because like, man, your abdomen, any way you move is that. So like, you can't ride a horse.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's so. I'm wondering if actually. So one of the questions that I had at the end of our last episode that I didn't ask, but is still kind of rolling around in my head, so I'm going to voice it, is what if the people that Joel and Ellie encountered were fireflies?
Which ones?
The ones that stabbed Joel.
Oh.
What if they were fireflies? So I'm wondering if, because Joel can't move around, if the fireflies are in this area, just not where they thought they were. Yeah. And so the fireflies will encounter them here as Joel is convalescing.
Yeah. And okay, related to that, my other thought was it would be kind of fascinating if the show eventually maybe ends the season with Joel and Ellie separated for whatever reason. You know, like she gets taken by the fireflies, or she like has to go with the fireflies, or I don't know, something where we end the season on this like, now what? You know, like these two protagonists that we've been following that have been building trust together. They're saving each other's lives. You know, like they're no longer together, and I think that would be fascinating to see what character moments come when they are not colliding with each other anymore and have to like grow in other ways, and then we'll obviously find their way back together again. But yeah, does someone come and take Ellie? Do the fireflies come and she's got to go with them to save humanity? And what does that look like?
Yeah, no, I think that would be smart to separate these two, because now we've had an entire season of them bonding, and we understand how both of them have been isolated for so long, and then we understand Ellie's deepest desire to not end up alone. So I think like that separation would make sense now for these characters. So I like that. I
not me wanting the worst for them.
But
that's the whole point, you know? Well, especially
we could dream up worse scenarios than this.
True.
Like
one of them dies. Yeah.
At least we're including like separation and then coming back together, you know?
Right. Exactly. Well, and it also would perfectly play on and trigger a lot of their fears. And they then have the choice to lean into the hopelessness of that, or they choose to fight and find each other, you know?
Yeah.
Because Ellie being taken away from Joel is like perfectly his fear of not being able to protect her and protect those he loves. Ellie being taken away from Joel is like literally losing the person that she cares for deeply. And so they can wallow in that for a while, and then they're going to fight to find each other.
Yeah. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense for what this show has been setting up, is for these two to separate for a bit.
Especially because there's all these warm fuzzies now that we have between the two of them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when the warm fuzzies come, it's like signs that it's just going to go down next.
Always. Always. This is what The Last of Us has taught us.
Yeah.
Is that if anybody is laughing or smiling or joking or having a good time, something bad is about to happen. That's just the formula of the show.
Because it's the apocalypse.
And nobody have time for fun.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay, we got it. We figured it out.
We have. Yeah. I'm emotionally armored up and ready to head into the chaos of the next two episodes.
I am glad.
And you know what? It's The Last of Us. So you know that the last episodes are going to give us some gut punches. For sure. Emotional gut punches. I'm ready.
Also, I want more infected. Is really what I'm like. That one episode where they all just came out of the ground and started murdering everybody. Like, that was so cool. I would like more of that, please. I don't know that we're going to get that because of the last 2 episodes and what we have to do with these characters and finding the cure and yada yada. But man, if we could get another good, like, infected fight, I would be a fan.
You're watching The Last of Us like I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I'm just like, I need nothing else. Give me some good kills, some big action, and I'm a happy camper, you know?
It's true. At least in The Last of Us, they're not brutally torturing women.
Yeah, this is
and I do appreciate that. They are equal opportunity murderers, and that is what I like to see. If you're going to be a horde murdering people, just treat everyone the same. That's all I ask.
Equal opportunity murderers. We love that for the infected beings. Yeah,
we do love that.
It's really great. Nature's very fair.
Honestly, though, like,
no one is safe is the answer. Like, everyone gonna die.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is our review and discussion of episode 7. You can find available to stream on Max. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we continued our journey through The Last of Us Season 1. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review letting us know your thoughts about episode 7. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. We will be back soon to discuss episode 8, the penultimate episode of this season. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.